Okay. Can you sit?
Okay. Sit down. Sit on the seat. Okay. Come sit on the seat. Sit on the seat. Come up here. Sit on the seat. Okay. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good morning. Welcome aboard the Weiser Railroad and our Torch Leg locomotive. I want to thank Clyde for his very good service here this morning at this great platform, getting us out right on time. Thank you, sir. For your safety on our trains today, we remind you to please remain seated at all times while our train is in motion. And please remember as well to keep your arms and legs, and especially your head, inside the train car. The Smith Creek Depot, originally located about 8 miles west of Fort Huron, Michigan during the very early Civil War years, has a very strong affiliation with a young newspaper boy selling copies of his Detroit Free Press out of this very building during the very early Civil War years. That young man ultimately went on to much bigger and better things and ultimately became the greatest inventor this country has ever seen. Our Detroit, Toledo, Milwaukee Roundhouse coming up on our left-hand side, one of our premier venues here in Greenfield Village. Back in the heyday of the steam locomotives, there were over 10,000 of these buildings located all over the United States that provided service, maintenance, and repair for steam locomotives and other rolling stock. That number has now dwindled down to where there are just a half a dozen left working on steam trains for a railroad. This being one of the 6 and the only one located here in the Midwest. Up until 5 p.m. this afternoon, you can try out that 42-ton turntable out in front that we use every day to put our trains together here in the village. Inside, we also have the 101-ton Atlantic locomotive that provided high-speed passenger service back in the very early 1900s between Detroit and Chicago at speeds approaching 70 miles per hour. And inside the roundhouse as well, we have a couple of restorations going on. One on an 1897 Baldwin locomotive, the other on a 1912 caboose from the Detroit-Mackinac Railroad. Going by the Liberty Craftworks area here, for many years our artisans have worked here in pottery, glass, weaving, wool carding. We have our own tin shop as well as print shop, and our Liberty Craftworks store will remain open until 5 p.m. this afternoon. On the right-hand side, the last American residents to come into the village, and it came in here from Columbiana County, Ohio, is the birthplace home of Mr. Harvey Firestone, who founded the Tire and Rubber Company bearing his name in 1900. Here in the village, this is a working farm, and even though Sunday is a day of rest, the men that work in these fields will be happy to answer any questions you may have about the farming techniques, as well as the equipment they used back in the mid-19th century to plow their fields, sow their seeds, and harvest their crops in late summer on into early fall. These are merino sheep over here on the left-hand side who are highly prized for the quality of their wool. We added 4 or 5 lambs to this group earlier this spring. We're now coming into the Firestone platform. This is going to be a stop of just about 6 to 7 minutes. We'll be exiting, should you care to do so, on the right-hand side. And venues nearby would include the Ford Home, the Ford Motor Company for the Model T story, the Wright Brothers Cycle Shop from Dayton, Ohio, where they built their very first flyer, and also the Menlo Park Laboratories of Thomas Alva Edison. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now safe for you to exit on the right-hand side.